So believe it or not, I might actually agree with the manosphere as far as the disagreement between Trump and Elon Musk and how it is not vagocentric, but actually phallocentric, and a great example of how alpha men deal with conflict. Now, personally, I've never had friends that are pedophiles, but if I did, I would not fund their campaigns and only wait to expose the fact that they either are or enabled or were very close with pedophiles until after we had a falling out or whatever Musk is actually angry about. I would confront them directly, and my focus would be justice for the victims and finding out the truth. Let's be clear. Their fight is not healthy. It is not direct. It is petty, bullying bullshit that is all about grappling for power and virtue signaling and has nothing to do with the truth or concern with victims of sexual assault, which obviously neither Trump nor Musk care about. If they did, their lives would be lived in a very different way. Now, this is a bigger problem with the whole idea of alpha men and big man history and the modern idea of masculinity in general. Now, if you are a comrade who is genuinely struggling with masculinity and the best way to be a modern man in a way that is virtuous and moral and supportive and non-oppressive, you have my sympathy and support, and I hope you know that you can talk to me. I might not be the person you want to talk to, but I do offer that, and I realize that it is not easy. And this is not an attack on you. I realize that it is hard to find ways to be a man in modern society because the way masculinity is defined under patriarchy is one that is in opposition to femininity. Any claim of something being masculine therefore means that it can't be feminine. So to claim anything positive as masculine inherently comes off as sexist because you're saying that is not feminine. And I simply don't believe that we have a lack of good masculine role models out there. Now, we might have a lack of role models that heavily exhibit traditionally masculine stereotypical traits that are not good role models. And there might be a good reason for that. It might be because a lot of those traits are not generally what make up good role models. Because a lot of those traits are things like aggression and dominance and bullying and lack of empathy and are not things that we really should be championing. And FD Signifier actually put out a good video that lays this bare, and it is so important that men talk about these things because when I say them, I think they tend to ring hollow because I haven't had these experiences. But when men share their experiences, it's something, first of all, I think I can learn from, and it resonates with men, as it should, because he is speaking from a place that understands the hurt and pain that men are going through right now, whereas I really don't. I can't speak to how moving beyond these roles is difficult and how men are struggling. And personally, I have to push against men who are saying that masculinity is under attack, that they don't feel like they could be men anymore, they're not allowed to be men. Well, first of all, the way I understand alpha masculinity is that you don't need permission. You don't ask permission, you just are. And you see these men on the far right. And again, this is not an attack on men. This is not an attack on men who are struggling with the best ways to be masculine. This is an attack on far-right, anti-feminist, misogynistic, and misandrous views that are making their struggles with masculinity and loneliness and relationships and their emotional health everybody else's problem. And the way they define masculinity is one of oppression and hierarchy. It's defined in such a way that it is literally in opposition to femininity. It is literally placing itself as superior to femininity. How do you make that non-toxic unless you're a misogynist? I don't think anyone in the manosphere is about to have that debate with me, but I really would like to know if they uphold these stereotypes. How is that not limiting to the freedom of both men and women? But how is that not upholding an oppressive hierarchy? And I guess they would say that either the hierarchy is not oppressive or it's natural. But again, if it's so natural, why is it that they're so scared of masculinity being under attack? Why is it they have to watch these videos that train them all the best ways to be a real man? If they are a real man, then it would just be living their life would be the best way to be a real alpha man, because that would just be what they are. And that's what I see from men on the left, feminist men who are a lot more secure in who they are. They don't have to perform this limited game of masculinity. And to be clear, this comes from a place of insecurity and deep-seated fear of women, because men, of course, are taught that to be feminine is to be a failure, that the feminine, especially if you're a man, is bad, it is a weakness, something you want to avoid. To be called a woman is one of the worst insults. Also, anything feminine, including being queer or gay, is considered bad. I was at the store yesterday and they had this very masculine branded soap that was per ounce much more expensive than any of the Dove and Caress and the feminine branded soap, and of course the gender neutral Ivory soap and Dial. Men are being exploited by patriarchy directly in being sold these products that they are led to believe are necessary in their quest to be the ultimate man, which I'm not saying that self-improvement is wrong, but if that self-improvement is limited to stereotypical gender roles, it's going to be negative. It's going to have men acting in ways that are contrary to who they actually are. And one danger in this, not only is it psychologically devastating, it is something that breeds a lot of resentment and a lot of entitlement, because as we all know, if we've watched the narrative of any action movie, you know, you're the tough guy, often you're the underdog, you're fighting this oppressive power who is often either feminized or portrayed as being whipped by another woman or queer-coded. And of course the tough guy does whatever he has to do and wins the day, and the woman is the prize. And this is what men are sold, that if they work hard, if they uphold capitalism, if they uphold patriarchal and heteronormative norms, that they will get the trad wife. And when they're not getting that, they feel slighted. And in a way, they're not wrong, but they should be asking, well, are women people, or are they a prize? Or should I be looking for someone that I can be emotionally connected to, that's an equal partner to me? We really are living in a time and place that is truly miraculous, where many of us, not all of us, are able to be with a person or people that we truly love and want to be with. That was not true throughout history. A lot of people were forced to marry people either out of property considerations or because they wanted to create an heir. And of course they were forced to have children. Starting a family wasn't a choice, but gay or straight, it is not easy always, but it is possible not only to be with the person or people we want to be with, but be the person that we want to be. But this is something very special that was not a given throughout history, and it's something I think we should celebrate. And unfortunately, men being dragged into these stereotypical gender roles is threatening to rob that from them. And you see these men who are simply incapable of forming lasting and meaningful connections with women. I mean, they don't even seem to like women or being attracted to them. Their misogyny is so deep that they're almost becoming asexual, or not homoerotic, but they obviously have a very strong tendency to only like and want to hang out with men and be interested in male things because they believe that's what it means to be an alpha. So obviously they don't want to be seen as gay because that is considered feminine, but they hate women so much that they will talk extensively about how they find women's genitalia to be disgusting, how they hate women's voices, how they hate everything feminine. They really are isolating themselves to the point where even if they wanted to, they couldn't be with a woman because they just hate them and everything about them so much. And for some of them, they're actually proud of this. They think that feminism has ruined women and therefore they are better off alone if they can't find a trad wife. And they're proud of how emotionally damaged and immature they are. It isn't just that they have this lack of empathy and caring and reject these things because they see any emotions that aren't lust or anger as feminine and thus bad, but they have damaged themselves to the point where they are unable to cope with their emotions. And you see this anger, and fascists obviously take advantage of this anger and sexual frustration because, as I've said before, women don't tend to like and definitely don't want to fuck men who hate them, so these men end up alone. And despite what the manosphere claims, the statistics are very clear that even today, the benefits of marriage and long-term relationships are ones that primarily benefit men in every single aspect of their life, whether it comes to health span, lifespan, social life, even financially. Married men have more sex, they are more satisfied with their sex lives, they have more emotional connections, they're more socially engaged, they have significantly longer lifespans, they're significantly healthier, of course much happier. There is literally no other lifestyle choice that straight men can make that has such a positive effect on their lives. And anyone who's happily single and doesn't want romantic or doesn't want sexual relationships, that is a perfectly fine way to be, as long as it isn't based on something like misogyny, that increasingly men are becoming more isolated. That is something that far-right and misogynistic men are dealing with a lot more. And I know that these men are probably not going to be the ones watching my video, but if they are, I would encourage them to look at some of the studies I've put out, watch some of my videos, and if I'm wrong about my claims, prove it. I mean, I've been on manosphere platforms for decades asking to be rebutted, and the overwhelming response has been to be blocked and to be ignored. So I take that to mean that they don't actually have any real arguments against a lot of my claims, because their claims are primarily based in emotional fields, not facts, not logic. They are angry at women because they feel betrayed. They made all these sacrifices to be the ideal man, or they feel insecure because they haven't been able to live up to the ideal man, which, no one can. And as a result, especially if they're alone or divorced or struggling to find connection with other people, this is what they blame. And unfortunately, it is not going to help. They are simply going to seep deeper and deeper into this rabbit hole unless they start challenging these assumptions, because there's a reason they call it the black pill. And I simply don't understand the stubbornness behind it when they realize that these are very self-destructive ways of thinking. Why is it that they continue to follow them? I do believe that most of these men do have the strength to get better. I don't understand why they refuse to. But I don't know.